Thank you, moderator. Good day, everybody. I don't know where are you located, so better say good day rather than mentioning specific period of time. As mentioned by the moderator, I would like to share you a story about the maritime cultures of the Sulawesi Islands. I use the title as voicing culture after nature because I'm putting this discussion in the context of Coral Triangle initiatives. Uh, this, which is dominated in its narrative by concerns on ecosystem biodiversity, or they call it ecoregions. I would like to see how actually culture can contribute to the efforts on conservations, nature conservations, particularly in this regard, coral reef. I would like to present this presentation first as an introduction, and after that would like to tell you some examples of maritime cultures, which I call it as a part of the maritime diversities in Sulawesi Islands. I would like to mention specific examples in this context, and then close by some closing remarks. So let's start with the talk about Coral Triangle initiatives. As you, I believe you are all aware, so this is a collaborative initiatives of 6 nations, 6 countries to conserve the area, the regions, they call it coral triangles. That's the center of coral reefs, the center of the global coral reefs ecosystem. So it's not talking about only the 6 nations, but they're talking about the need of using these ecoregions as a effort of, as a global effort to conserve our natures. Yeah. If you look at the narrative, particularly in the websites of Coral Triangle initiatives, we can see that the dominant narratives are concerns on biodiversities and ecological regions. You can see that the area and inside the red rectangle there is the focus of my talk here. But let's start with what we can see or what we can read in the dominant narrative of Coral Triangle initiatives. We can see here, for example, the narrative is concerned more on biodiversities, talking about how many coral reefs, how many coral species, how many mangroves and other sub of marine ecosystem in that particular regions. This is another example focusing on Indonesian, particularly in Sulawesi, what they talk about when they are talking about this area. Here, for example, some maps showing reef diversities in the Indonesian ecoregions. This is the diversity of reef associated with stomatophore. So that is it. If we look at the narrative, formal narrative of the Coral Triangle initiatives, or in terms of conservations, in the conservation of effort of Coral Triangle initiatives, the things that they miss, I believe, which should have been done when they're talking about conservation, is to talk about the people. The same area is the home of maybe millions of people, and some of those are maritime-oriented ethnic groups. such as the Bajo, the Sangihe in the northern part of Sulawesi, the Port Butonwis in the southeast part of the islands, and the Butonis, yeah, the Selayar, this one, and the Butonis. And these people, which is commonly we call it as maritime-oriented people, or orang laut, orang maritim, has a kind of established a very intimate relations with the sea through their belief system, their traditional knowledge on marine ecosystem, and traditional fishing practices, as well as traditional resource management. These are some rather detailed examples of these traditions. If we talk about orang Bajo or the sea nomad, for example, around the Sulawesi Islands, there are quite a lot of sea nomads population, or orang Bajo's populations. And we know well, actually, if we are talking about maritime culture, they are the real owners of the culture. They are among those limited people who spend 24 hours on the sea. Still, there are still some common Bajo people who are living on the boats like this. Some are already settled, but still in the sea. There's established settlements on the shallow waters of the coastal area. And this is another example of the settlement in the sea. So they established, houses constructed under coral reef walls. Now, let me talk about the second example, that is the orang Sangir in North Sulawesi. So, or Sangir Talaut. So these people, just give you some examples, establish a kind of a traditional marine tenure. They don't claim ownership to a particular coastal area, but they establish a kind of zonation system, zonation-like system, where, for example, when they are fishing for demersal fish, they tend to do it only in their coastal area only, their settlement area. Only certain area where they considered as shared fishing grounds, where people from different villages can join fishing, and in fact protect their area together. So this maps showing the names of the fishing grounds adjacent to their islands. This is a second example. If we are just talking about the traditional marine resource management, this particular people also establish traditional resource management through the practicing what they call it the tradition of Seke Maneke. That is the tradition of harvesting particular a small pelagic fish which come seasonally to their area. So once this particular fish come into their fishing grounds, it was arranged by their tradition. This fish only can only be caught using this traditional fishing gear, and they so they established a kind of system where particular group of people associated with particular fishing gear, this Seke gears, can only fish in certain fishing ground. Let me show you. This is, for example. So the group that is called Potas group, they can only fish in these fishing grounds. So there's a traditional regulations pertaining the allocations of fishing ground to particular fishing groups. So this is the organizations of each of the groups or Seke Maneke group. So they have the leaders that is called Tonasang Pakuete, which is considered as the most knowledgeable person, not only in terms of the ecosystem, natural system there, but also has quite a strong or powerful spiritual power. Then they appointed other people to be in charge for certain functions for the effectivity of fishing for that particular fish. Yeah. Another interesting issue is, again, unlike the modern management system, where the distributions of the catch is usually only for those who take part in the fishing activities, in their traditions, the share of the catch also given to other part of the community members, such as elders or widowers, or teachers and other prominent leading figures in the communities. That is one example of the traditions. The other tradition is what is called as EHA. That is the tradition of posing season for fishing activities in certain fishing grounds, usually lasted for 1 year. So they establish this tradition in particular fishing grounds. So they identified fishing grounds, put names on that, and then implemented the tradition of EHA, that is the closing seasons lasted for a year. The harvesting tradition is called Manee. So if EHA is a closing, Manee is the harvesting of the closed area for fishing for a year period. So usually there's again rituals and particular social organization in charge to take part in or arrange the ritual of harvesting the fish after being closed by EHA. Then in the tradition of Manee, they open it. This is some pictures. Sorry, not so good pictures taken from a YouTube film. So it where they prepare, yeah, the equipment for harvesting. This is coconut leaf, whip, and then used as the driving gears to drive the fish to the coastal waters, and then corner it into particular area, and then they harvest it. It started by local leaders, ritual and other thing, and the community then take part in the harvesting of the fish. This is another example from Selayar. So Selayar people, by traditions, they establish kind of community-based coastal management. So they establish the claim of management right to the coastal area adjacent to their villages, and they establish some zones in that particular coastal waters, and they establish a marine protected area in this area. And they also, outside of the marine protected area, they establish certain regulations of fishing practices. For example, this is similar to what Bill explained in Micronesia, Polynesia, fishware. They call it, what's it? They call it, oh, I forgot. I have the here bila. They call it bila. So every sports associated with this fishing gears, or they call it bila, is owned by a family. So other family cannot put the wear there. There are 56 spots of wears there, and exclusive for particular family members there. And there's a prohibition of destructive fishing and other regulations pertain, which is not only based on their concerns to the sustainability of the resources, but also their concerns on fair distributions or potential distributions of the catch. Again, this is something that we understand not properly addressed in the modern tradition, a modern management, coastal management, or fisheries management, concern on social welfare, community, community-driven, incentive to work together doing the management. This is the last example from Buton. They also established a communal marine tenure. That is the claim that they have the right to manage the coastal waters adjacent to their settlements area and associated with the traditional organizations of that particular community. So they also identified different sub-ecosystem, put name on that, and established different regulations pertaining to the use or even conservation of that particular territory. This is another detailed regulations applied in their coastal waters. For example, Kaombo Sauru is permanent nautic zone area. Kaombo Awaktu, the area regulated by opening and closing seasons, such as the tradition implemented in other parts of Sulawesi, and also the area where they are allowing people to fish for sustainable use or fish using traditional fishing gears. They have or also a kind of traditional committee in charge of controlling or implementing all the regulations that is applicable to their coastal waters. So to close this presentation, first I should say that diversity is not only for natural ecosystem but also socio-cultural system, and then this is important if we consider that the ideology and the practice of conservation based on ecocentric conservations where community of people are excluded, and in fact it was mostly considered as threat to the ecosystem, does not work, particularly in Indonesian context, because that is the life of so many people. That's the place or resources where thousands of people depend their life on. And also the fact that actually if the conservations implemented top-down, there's no enough resources from government or other institutions, even with the support of NGO, to really implement the regulation. So getting in the community on board is something that is necessary to establish a sustainable conservation or sustainable governance of the marine ecosystem. Socio-cultural system have been observed contribute positively to the conservation and the management of natural ecosystem. I explained earlier, and traditional knowledge and resource management are assets that should be valued like the natural ecosystem. Again, I would like to highlight the importance of incorporating these practices, this knowledge in the design of conservation as well as management. Thus, sustaining marine culture is not only a matter of cultural heritage, but also conserving the nature and dealing with food security and, of course, the social fair of the natural resource management and the distribution. Thank you very much.